But I think Ethereum has a narrative problem that we need to fix in order to help them better understand it. Bitcoin has a very simple narrative. 21 million Bitcoins, buy yours today. Tomorrow you won't have any left. That's the narrative. Solana has a very good narrative. We can be the next Ethereum. So if you like Ethereum, maybe you should bet on Solana because you're too late. But what is the narrative for Ethereum? A world computer? Everyone is a world computer. Like, it takes 5 minutes to launch an EVM chain. That's not a feature anymore. That's a common good. It's like everyone has that, right? A settlement layer? Everyone is a settlement layer. Even Bitcoin is a settlement layer. So what is the edge? Being more decentralized? How do you define decentralized? Nobody can define decentralized. I bet if you go to the EF and pick the 5 best guys there, let them, write on a piece of paper what is decentralization, they will come up with 5 different answers. So what is the edge of Ethereum? And if you think about it really hard and distill it to one thing, it's the user base, nothing more. Everything else is secondary. The innovation Ethereum has, the risk taking on the technology side is something that Ethereum has and maybe others don't. But all those things are secondary. They're not the primary thing. The primary thing Ethereum has today is the user base. The reason why they have this user base is because of the million other different things I've said. But that's much more technical than people care to actually experience or discuss. And so that user base should be the narrative for Ethereum. And I think if we can convert the user base to real world revenue flow to ETH token, I think that's at the end game for every other blockchain that has smart contracts. Because if you can drive value on a scale that nobody else has, then it's an effect which is, you drive the value, you get more people to hold the token goes up in price, more people want to develop on the token, and that's a flywheel effect nobody can match. I think that it's not the case that they don't know what Ethereum is or what the opportunity on Ethereum is and staking and so on. I think that they understand completely, just everyone understands something which was correct 5 years ago and not necessarily today. So the narrative, I think, should be changing. But other than that, I think the communication or the kind of information dissemination between the hardcore Ethereum and the cutting edge development all the way back to TradFi or whatever you want to call it, I think it's extremely open and there's no barriers like there used to be. And so that's why you're seeing ETFs going into staking. Who would have thought? ETFs 2 years ago would have been considered avant-garde and crazy. And today they're doing staking, like the most hardcore Ethereum you can think of. There definitely are banks that are considering launching their own rollups. That's crazy as well. That might be the next evolution of banking, like launching your own rollup. And so all of that is completely out there. It's not hidden in any way, shape, or form. I think that it's all happening. We just, as a community, need to fine-tune the narrative to make them be even more focused on what's happening inside Ethereum. Like, even if you think about the business model for L2s, that's super unique and nobody has that. And I think that's actually going to be the killer feature for Ethereum potentially in the next 5 years, because it enables you to bite as a brand name, for example, right? Or as somebody who wants to build something interesting on Ethereum. It enables you to bite a piece of the Ethereum ecosystem in a way which is not available in any other way. So I'll give an example. If I launch a rollup and I take 5% of the Ethereum transaction volume because I'm a very successful rollup for whatever reason, the only alternative I can think of to do the same is to hold 5% of Ethereum. Now, what is more expensive, holding 5% of Ethereum or launching a successful rollup? Right? There is no opportunity to take 5% of Solana. You'll have to hold 5% of Solana tokens. But in Ethereum, you could, because you can launch a rollup. Like tomorrow, if tomorrow Bank of America and 2 other big banks on Ethereum, in the US, gather around, create a cluster of rollups, completely permissioned with all of the KYC they want in the world. In that moment, they launch a stable coin and they take 50% of the transactions on Ethereum in a heartbeat. In a heartbeat. Because that's something which cannot be duplicated anywhere else. The closest they can do is launch a stable coin on Solana. But everyone can launch a stable coin on Solana. There is some benefit if Bank of America does that. But imagine capturing the actual users. Like, they transact on a Bank of America rollup. The business model is completely insane. And I think that those are the things that make Ethereum so unique. The opportunity to do those things, which do not exist. It used to be the case with ICOs. Ethereum was the first one. Then with DeFi, everyone is catching on, but they're catching on 2 or 3 or 4 years in the past, right? I mean, Solana is just now doing the meme coin things. We did meme coins in 2017. Like, if anyone remembers CryptoKitties and stuff, I think that that's the magic of Ethereum, the developer ecosystem it has and the things they do. If we can just make value capturing increase to the Ethereum token, I think that will be the end game for Ethereum and its competitors.
Awesome. And, one of the things that's in the zeitgeist, I think, pretty consistently has been interoperability, modular architectures, that's stuff that's being talked about, I think, in a lot of different corners of sort of like the digital asset and crypto realm. Do you ever envision SSV expanding sort of beyond Ethereum and integrating other proof of stake ecosystems? It sounds like from what you're saying, hey, Ethereum there's a lot to play for with Ethereum. And so getting Ethereum right, back to this 80-20 is like a big deal. But just curious how you view other proof of stake ecosystems' relevance to SSV in the future.
I mean, we definitely think of it, but I think that every time we seriously think about it, the opportunities in Ethereum outweigh the opportunities in other chains. Specifically for us, it doesn't mean that it's for everyone, right? But for us, it is. We are a hardcore infrastructure company. And so when you build infrastructure, if you can compound its value, it makes more sense than trying to duplicate it into somewhere else. And so for that reason, I think that staying on Ethereum makes a whole lot more sense. But it's not to say that there aren't any other opportunities out there. I think that our job is to stay true to what made SSV successful now and what can drive it into the future. I feel that Ethereum presents bigger opportunities for us.
Very helpful. So curious, as somebody who sits as a founder running your organization, what's the thing that sort of keeps you up at night when you think about all the different things that need to be executed on for SSV to be and continue to be successful? What are the key things that keep you up at night that you say, I need to stay singularly focused and get those right?
So it's basically two things. One is the operational integrity of SSV today, because we are 11% of Ethereum. If we fuck things up, that's very public. There's no way to kind of hide it at all. So that's one thing. So make sure that, we build things right. We make the right decision on kind of the hardcore things that make it as reliable as possible, because that's catastrophic if we don't do that. The second thing is to make the right opportunity decisions for the future. So we are, everything we do is 2 or 3 years in the future. And so you have to make the right decision to continue growing, because this industry is brutal in that sense. Like, if you can be dead in 12 months, you can be the biggest thing. There's so much, examples out there, but like, you can be the biggest thing and 12 months later, you're dead. And so just surviving and thriving, it's quite an undertaking. So I think that's the second biggest challenge we have.
And, you talked about like the critical nature of making certain decisions, right, that are pretty consequential. Is there a decision that you look back on now over sort of your journey in crypto that you say, that's one that like I'm most proud of, not because I was necessarily proven right, but it was a tough decision at the time, and like we made the decision the right way?
Yeah, when we pivoted into staking, and specifically SSV, at that point, we sold a completely different product, and we had to make a decision what we want to do. And so we actually developed the first product, which was kind of a non-custodial staking solution, which didn't succeed very well. And so within 3 or 4 months of launching it, we pivoted to do DVT. And so at that point, if I look back, we basically lost most of our management team in the following 6 months, because that pivot was so aggressive that people kind of lost the vision of where we're going, and we had to rebuild a lot of things from the ground up. But it made us stronger overall. So yeah, that was kind of a very pivotal moment.